The 19th and 20th centuries were a time of huge advancements in industry and technology for the human race. The science of chemistry led to the discovery of new compounds and techniques for making chemicals. Those advances led to what are now literally millions of man-made products, ones we use every day, ranging from fuels to power automobiles and other equipment, to medicines, clothing, and household cleaning products, developed to meet ever-growing consumer demands. It's hard to imagine our world without the chemicals and products produced through modern chemistry. Unfortunately, up until the latter part of the 20th century, chemicals and chemical wastes were typically produced and disposed of without considering potential impacts to our land, air, or water, or our health. Prior to the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, there were very few laws and regulations to ensure the proper storage and disposal of chemicals and chemical byproducts. Very little, if anything, was then known about how these chemicals could affect people or the environment. Although these types of disposal practices were acceptable at the time, growing concern about waste and byproducts from the chemical industry, as well as worker safety, eventually led to increased government regulation. EPA was formed in 1970 for the purpose of regulating chemicals and protecting human health by safeguarding the natural environment, land, air, and water. Since its formation, EPA has worked to ensure proper storage and disposal of all chemicals. Strict laws and regulations have been enacted to protect our land, water, and air. EPA has also worked to methodically identify and clean up historical waste sites across the country, some of which are called Superfund sites. As part of their ongoing work to protect human health and the environment, EPA has identified a particular class of chemicals that deserve special attention and management. Collectively, this group of chemicals is classified as persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic chemicals, or PBTs for short. These chemicals can remain in the environment a long time, and some may concentrate in the bodies of animals, including humans. PBTs include certain types of pesticides that were once used in the U.S., including chlordane, DDT, aldrin, dieldrin, Mirex, to name a few. PBTs also include mercury and mercury compounds, alkyl lead, which was the type of lead once used as an anti-knock compound in leaded gas, dioxins and furans, and polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs. PBTs are called persistent, meaning they are stable chemical compounds. Some do not readily break down easily. Due to their chemical structure, they can cycle between air, water, and land, and some can remain in the environment for decades. The result of organisms such as fish being exposed to these PBTs is called bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation is the accumulation of substances such as pesticides or other organic chemicals through respiration, food intake, skin contact, and other means. They are bioaccumulative because they accumulate in living organisms, and the levels in these organisms can build up or concentrate over time with repeated exposures. They can be toxic, meaning they can cause health effects if people are exposed beyond safe levels. To understand how these chemicals may behave in the environment, let's look at polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, as an example. PCBs are actually a class of over 200 different chemical compounds. They are comprised of carbon, hydrogen, and chlorine. PCBs were widely used in industrial and commercial applications such as lubricants and coolants, and in a variety of applications such as hydraulic oils, lighting and electrical devices, capacitors and transformers. PCBs were even used as additives in some paints. The production of PCBs was banned in 1977 because of growing evidence that they were persistent in the environment. Unfortunately, many PCBs had already been released into the environment prior to 1977 through disposal in landfills, accidents, spills, fires, etc. We now know that PCBs can travel long distances from where they were originally released and remain in the environment for a very long time. For this reason, PCBs are found virtually all over the world. People can be exposed to PCBs in the environment by breathing air containing PCBs, direct skin contact with PCBs or materials containing PCBs, or by ingesting PCBs in water and food. This is of particular concern because with repeated exposure, PCBs can be concentrated in the body over time. Let's see how this could happen. Once in the environment, most PCBs do not dissolve easily in water, but they will bind to the organic components in soils and sediments. This means they can be easily transported with particles washed into streams and rivers. When PCBs enter a body of water, they can become part of the food chain. This happens because the PCB particles bind tightly to organic materials like bottom sediments, which are eaten by small bottom-dwelling organisms. These smaller organisms are then eaten by larger animals, which can in turn be eaten by fish. Smaller fish can then be eaten by larger fish and other animals, including humans. Since these organisms cannot easily break down or excrete the PCBs, these chemicals can be passed along through each link in the food chain. This process is called bioaccumulation. Some PCBs can gradually become concentrated in the animal's tissues and can reach levels that may be many times higher than what was originally found in the water and sediments. Bioaccumulation of PCBs mainly occurs in specific organs and tissues. If the PCBs concentrate to a high enough level, animals can even become unsafe for people to eat. The extent of bioaccumulation varies depending on site-specific information, such as which chemical is present, how much of the chemical is in the environment, the organism being exposed, and how much the organism has actually ingested into its system. The bioaccumulation of PCBs and other PBTs is especially common in fish and seafood and can result in regulatory agencies releasing consumption advisories. People need to be aware of any fish or seafood consumption advisories for their area and follow published guidelines in order to avoid potential health effects. A consumption advisory is a warning. Its purpose is to make the public aware that contaminants are present in fish or seafood. Health effects could possibly occur if people do not follow the advisory guidelines. Advisories in the United States typically specify the following: type and location of contamination within a water body, the affected localities, the type or species of fish affected, and the number of locally caught fish or seafood meals the average person can safely eat each week or month from the advisory area. Certain fish bioaccumulate contaminants more than others. In addition, larger fish will typically have higher concentrations as well. Some consumption advisories provide more strict warnings for groups of people at higher risk, such as children or pregnant women. Or they might advise people to avoid eating any fish or seafood from certain areas. If you eat fish or seafood from areas of known contamination, there are steps you can take to reduce the amount of chemicals like PCBs that are absorbed into your body. Typical recommendations may include eating the smaller and younger animals who will have had less time to accumulate contaminants than the older, larger animals, filleting the fish or removing skin, fat, and organs before cooking. Contaminants such as PCBs tend to collect and concentrate in fatty tissues and organs. Increasing cooking time, and baking, broiling, or grilling on a rack to allow the fat to cook out. Battering and frying tends to trap contaminants inside. Discarding the fats and drippings that cook out of the fish instead of reusing them for stock or broths. Follow these simple recommendations and specific guidance published in local fish and seafood consumption advisories. Doing so will help protect your health and still allow you to keep locally caught fish and seafood in your diet. Thankfully, there are now laws and regulations to ensure the proper storage and disposal of PBTs. The EPA, the Department of Defense, and your federal, state, and local governments will continue to work in partnership to clean up past releases and minimize potential future exposures from chemicals like PCBs to both humans and wildlife. If you need additional information on fish or seafood consumption advisories in your area, please contact your local or state health department. If you need additional information regarding the location of environmental cleanup sites in your area, please contact your local or state Department of Environmental Quality or your regional EPA office. If you are on a Department of Defense installation, please contact your local environmental office for more information regarding the cleanup program on base. For more information on persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic chemicals, including fact sheets for individual chemicals, please refer to these websites. This video was produced by the Navy and Marine Corps Public Health Center in Portsmouth, Virginia. For additional information regarding our products or services, please see our website.